believe I am. Am I live? Am I live? Am I there? Am I there, everybody? Have I just been talking to myself for the last 6 minutes? I think I might have been. Folks, can you tell me if you can see me and if you can hear me? And have I just come on in the last sort of 30 seconds or so? Because I've just been talking away for the last 6 minutes. I've been saying all sorts of things. And, oh, yes. Shall I start again? I have literally just done 6 minutes of this broadcast to nobody. It's ridiculous. Right. Shall we start again? I'm going to start with what I had planned, right? Are you ready? Are you ready with what I had planned? This is how I actually started. Right. I started like this. Rest in peace, Michael Parkinson. That's how I started. That went well, didn't it? Sad day. I was a bit gutted by that, to be honest. Today's is just always been there, hasn't he? He's always been there, and now he isn't. And I think we're down to just 3 people left on this now. Obviously Paul, Denny Lane, and John Conte on the other side from Parky there. Such is the circle of life. Thank you for everybody who letting me know that I'm now on. Unbelievable. I'm just going to have to do everything again that I've just done because I thought you were all listening. Anyway, so here we are. Better late than never, eh, folks? So things to talk about tonight. Well, I want to be led by yourselves a lot of this because I don't just want to take it over and talk non-stop without engaging in the chat. I want this to be a chat. Lila, hey Lila, how many on that cover are still with us? I think I've just covered that. Yeah, so hello everybody who's saying hello. I've said all this before. I've just got to remember that you haven't heard me do all this already. What an idiot I am sometimes. Seal Decker, how are you doing? Hi Andrew, I'm going to London on Saturday and seeing the McCartney exhibition on Monday. Brilliant. I'm sure you will enjoy that. It's really good. I certainly enjoyed it when I went. And anybody, if you're going to be in London over the next probably month and a half, or is it to the end of September or to the end of October? I can't remember. It's really well worth going to see at the National Portrait Gallery. Hello everybody who's saying hello. William says it would be good to cover what we know about the Red and Blue album or what might be coming. Absolutely. So what do we know? It was almost certainly planned to be announced last week, and something. Well, we know what happened. We know what happened. Taylor Swift happened. It would seem that is almost certainly, unless they're never going to come out and officially say why it wasn't announced or whatever. But Taylor Swift announcement. When you're announcing something really big like the Beatles are here, this Red and Blue release with the new song Now and Then, you want to know that you've got those entertainment outlets for your news, whether it's the spot at the end of the news where they do some like a happier story, whether it's the online media sites that have got a certain number of stories that they can publish. You do not want to be competing with who is, whether you like it or not, the biggest star on earth right now, announcing unexpectedly that she's releasing a new album. So I completely understand why they didn't announce it last week. I think it was a good idea not to. But why hasn't it been this week? That's the mystery. Why has it not been this week? And I'm afraid we don't know the answer to that at the moment. These things change all the time. You know, we might know tomorrow morning exactly why and what's happening. But I was surprised that nothing's been announced this week. Worries me slightly about how long is this delay going to be. So it's a tricky one at the moment. So yeah, Red and Blue. What's people's thoughts on the Red and Blue being remixed and released as the next Super Deluxe edition? Let us know. We don't know exactly what format it will take, but it would seem the news from those who know, and there are those who know about these things who do make their presence felt online. They suggest that the Red and Blue itself, the track listing, will be left as it is, as it's always been, but probably with an additional disc or two of extra material, which should include the new Now and Then song, but potentially won't include Real Love and Free as a Bird, which was a bit of a surprise to me. Anthony says, surely it was only delay in announcement, not release. I really hope you're right. The fact is, we don't know at the moment. We really don't know. Why not announce it this week? That's what I can't get my head around. I mean, all right, there's a bit of news tomorrow. The fact that there's the new Dolly Parton song featuring Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr is out tomorrow, but that, all right, I can understand a Taylor Swift announcement getting in the way of things, but not this Dolly Parton thing. That can't be the reason. So I wish I knew why it hasn't been announced this week. I really do. Jimmy Nickel Likes Pickle says they are sacred, don't touch them. Well, it looks like they're not going to touch them as they are red and blue, but there'll be something else added with it. This is the first time I've ever been able to do this on camera. I have the Red album as of, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Might have been the day before, I can't remember now. I now own the Red album for the first time in my life. This is the 2010 version. I just thought, before the new version comes out, I'm going to have to get myself sorted, get a version. So I've now got Red and Blue for the first time ever. So it's only taken me several decades to get round to that. What have we got? Hi, Beck. Says, I think that the covers will be different on the Red and Blue albums. What will the dates be? 67 to 23? Can't be. I would suspect from what I've heard, it sounds like you will have it. I think, we don't know yet, but the news from those who seem to know what's happening is we would have a 62 to 66, we would have a 67 to 70, and something else. What's that something else going to be called? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be date constrained, does it? It could have some other name. It might be called Now and Then. What a perfect name that would be for an additional bonus element to that's got songs from back in the day and something that's brand new now. They might call the extra bit Now and Then. No, I don't know. That's just a bit of a guess from me. So what have we got? Again, I don't want to miss out on the chat here. Ron says, I think it will stay the same. You're not really called Ron Burgundy. I know that. A missed opportunity not to remix the two reunion singles. I agree. I mean, they've had their remix, didn't they, in 2015? And but you'd have wondered whether could they make John's voice more sound better now with this Mal technology. I don't know. Maybe they've tried. Maybe they didn't think that the results were worth it. Maybe they wanted to leave the 2015 versions as the remixes. I was always really aware of how different Real Love was on 2015 on the One Plus album. But it was only a few days ago when I really properly listened to what they did to Free as a Bird on there. And that's really different as well. I was surprised. I'd sort of ignored it because I didn't really realise that they'd messed around with that. But that's quite different as well. What have we got? Me and Mr. Hey Joe. Nobody knows anything 100% sure yet. Well, ain't that the truth? We certainly don't. I wish we did. Hopefully we will soon. What do we know of the structure of Now and Then, says Ron Burgundy. Well, what do we know about it? So we know that it features all four Beatles. Obviously, the John Lennon demo from the 70s. Now, I said something a few weeks ago that I think was, I'm not sure whether I maybe didn't quite fully understand it right at the time or what, but I'd said that they'd stripped out some TV noise. I think it was TV hum? There was some sort of background hum from this TV that was on the tape. They managed to strip that out. So they've got John's voice. We've got some guitar from George, presumably from the anthology sessions in the mid-90s. We know that it features Paul singing, but not artificially, intelligently Is that a phrase? Not AI enhanced anyway, Paul's voice. So maybe that's from the 90s as well. That would be interesting to find out. We know that it's got Paul on bass. We know that it's got Ringo drumming. So it's all 4 Beatles on there. What have we got again going on in the chat? William says, you're most intrigued about the comments regarding AI being used to de-age Paul. That is not happening. That seems to be pretty much confirmed now. That has not happened. And I'm glad. I'm glad. It's one thing using AI to clean things up and enhance the sound, like they did in the Get Back movie, you know, with the conversation, for example, between John and Paul that was recorded in the flower pot when George left. That was enhanced to make it much easier to hear, make it much clearer. Brilliant, great. But AI to make somebody sound 40 years younger, I really don't like that at all. I've completely taken against all these, you know, Paul McCartney singing God Only Knows, Paul McCartney singing Beautiful Boy. I can't listen to them. I just don't want to know about them, basically. But that seems to be confirmed that hasn't happened with this. Anthony, you're guessing everything on the set will have used Mal to remix, minus songs which have already been remixes for box sets. Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting one, isn't it? You look at the Blue album, for example, and a bit towards the back end of the Red album with Revolver songs, but there's a lot of stuff on here that's already been remixed recently for the big anniversary editions. It sounds as though they're probably going to use those again. They maybe remaster them so that you get, for example, a consistent volume level, because you'd probably find that some of the Sgt. Pepper stuff might be quite a bit louder than the Let It Be stuff. So they may well remaster it just to get a consistent volume level throughout. But I don't get the impression that they're remixing them again. You know, we might find out different. Seal Decker, yeah, I read that earlier as well. That was about an hour or two ago, wasn't it? I mean, you know, there might be some truth in that, but I looked through his other posting history and there was no suggestion at all that he had any inside info on anything, on any previous post of his. So unless he's suddenly come into knowledge very left field, I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. That was a suggestion that it was going to be announced in October for a December release. Might well happen, but I'd like to know a bit more about his credibility before I believe that. Mark, some of it will be remixed again. I'm thinking they would want to apply Mal to Sgt. Pepper and White Album. I don't think they need to. If you think that the purpose of Mal, machine-assisted learning, is to separate things that were locked in, did that happen on Sgt. Pepper? Maybe drums. Maybe they might separate the drums out a little bit more. But, you know, all the guitars had their own tracks. All the vocals had their own tracks. So generally speaking, I don't think that they need to use it on the later stuff. But I'm sure when this is announced, we'll hear a lot more. Surely Giles Martin will do interviews. He'd probably like to talk about that technology. And we'll find out. Blue Rhythm Boy says, would I like an official release of the full Decca audition? Would having to pay Pete Best prevent it? Well, it didn't prevent them using songs that he was on Anthology. So I really hope it wouldn't. I'd love to have an official release of the full Decca audition. I know it's bootleg to hell, but I always prefer an official release of something. And you know, I've said it before. I might be boring people who've heard me bang on about this before, that I would love them to do a box set that the title I came up in my head with was From Birth to Beatlemania, where you could have those really early recordings. That'll be the day, In Spite of All the Danger, those kind of things. You could have the full Decca audition. You could have some of the early radio shows that they did, and early studio sessions, and have a Star Club, for example, in there. If they're not going to release Star Club separately, have it as one absolutely killer, fantastic box set. I would love that. I would absolutely love it. But that's probably wishful thinking on my part there. Gregory, has anybody ever said my accent sounds a bit like Reece Shearsmith? I've Yes. And I've even got photographs where I look a bit like him as well. But I am only from just down the road from him, so it's not really too much of a surprise. Anyway, I'm going to cut to the end of the chat now because again, I don't want to leave. I want to. If I've missed your comment out, ask it again. I'll try and get to it. Beck says, "Do I think a lot of what Penn Jillette said was untrue? It seemed questionable." E.g. because harmonies. There was some stuff in there that was obviously wrong. Like he talked about them. He talked about the 1980s anthology sessions. Well, obviously they weren't 1980s. That could have just been a mistake on his part. But it's. I don't really believe a great deal of what he said until any of it gets confirmed. So I've taken that with a huge pinch of salt. Official release of the rooftop concert, says Vinyl Marmalade. Absolutely. I know some companies have done vinyl issues of it then under the sort of grey European copyright issue thing. But yeah, that would be great. I've managed to get I've ripped the audio from my Get Back Blu-ray, full high definition lossless quality. So I'm sorted with that now. But yeah, I would love a physical release of it. Definitely, I'd love an official vinyl of it. Anthony, yes, I saw that as well about writing the last episode of number 9. That's got a bit. There's some pressure on that. That should be good. Probably a year or so away from hearing about that as well. How about the Stowe School concert, says Graham. Now, has anybody out there heard that yet? Has anybody been to the British Library to hear that? I haven't. We've got there's like a northern branch of the British Library where you can go at Boston Spa in Yorkshire. It's probably about 3/4 of an hour drive from where I am. So I do intend to go and do that. The quality, could they rescue anything from the quality on that? I don't know. It's really ropey quality, but if they could make something good out of it, that would be great. Oh, Romero, this is the $1 million question. We're still waiting for Paul's Off the Ground archive collection. Will he continue the series, do you think? I wish he'd get a move on, that's for certain. I will be gutted if it doesn't continue. I can't see him ever making an announcement. It doesn't feel like a Paul McCartney kind of thing to announce the archive collection is finished. The only way we're going to know it's finished, I think, is just that it just goes on and on forever, not being released. But yeah, I'd love Off the Ground. I would absolutely love Press to Play. That would be the one that would excite me the most. London Town Back to the Egg, obviously. Surely they can't get missed out. Do we know if Jeff Lynne will get a production credit on Now and Then, says Andrew Galvin? Has he been involved at all? It's a great question. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that at all. Will they go straight to the original tracks and build it from that point, kind of overseeing Jeff Lynne's input? Because I don't know whether Jeff Lynne was involved in the recording. I guess he probably was. Rather than just producing it after it had been recorded. So I don't know. If he was involved in the recording of it, you would like to think that they would name check him on there. I don't know. What else have we got? So, yes to Press to Play and London Town, definitely. Ben says, I think the archive collection is over, sadly. Having 3 years without one, I would say it's done, and that's a real shame. I would agree. I think one thing we don't know at the moment, we can only really guess, is I think we were lucky with Flaming Pie because it came out, if I remember rightly, was it July 2020, right in the middle of COVID, lockdown. I think we were lucky to get that with what was going on in the world at the time. How much of what has or hasn't been released since is still a knock-on effect of everything that happened over that period? And I don't think we know the answer to that one, to be honest. So I would hope that they will get back on track with it. Do you think England should keep playing baseball or revert to Jeff boycott cricket? Good God, I wouldn't want us to revert to Jeff boycott cricket. Nobody needs that. I'm not enough of an expert on that, to be honest, to be able to say. I'll just say I think we threw it away. Absolutely threw it away. What's the relationship like between Jeff Lynne and McCartney? As far as I know, it's good. I mean, I know Paul appeared... When would it have been? It was several years ago now, but there was a Jeff Lynne documentary. Paul appeared on that and said nice things about working on Anthology with him. So as far as I know, they get on great. Derelict Unknown, do we hear anything about 50th anniversary of Living in the Material World? Not a sniff. There is not a sniff of information to suggest that that's happening. Again, gutted. Why wouldn't there be a Rubber Soul Deluxe this year? I'd love it, but it just doesn't seem to be on the cards. It seems as though their project for this year would be the Red and Blue albums. Rubber Soul, for whatever reason, we don't know. Again, when Rubber Soul eventually comes, whether it's next year or whether it's in 2025 for a 60th anniversary, when it comes, we might get more information through interviews with the likes of Giles. Maybe so. McCartney could really take a lesson from some of these other old bands that are charging much lower prices for tickets. They realise the retired boomers such as I could never afford $1,500 tickets. Yeah, I don't think there's any argument there. It's ticket prices are absolutely crazy. They really, really are. I've just remembered I can do that. I keep forgetting I can do this. New Macra album on the cards. Well, so this is a little bit of news that got released that really went under the radar a lot. So there was an interview came out. I think is it a Brazilian newspaper? Paul had done interviews with a Brazilian newspaper around the publicity for his concerts that he's going to be doing. And Paul said in that interview, this was about a week ago that this interview came out, he said he's got a bunch of new songs that he expects to be able to put out next year. Now that to me sounds like a new album. So that's news that kind of went out officially, but just hasn't really surfaced anywhere. It's not really gained much traction. Maybe because it was just sort of issued in Brazilian. I don't think there was an English translation available of it. It was behind a paywall. So that was news that really slipped under the radar. So hopefully a new Paul McCartney album next year. That would be brilliant. Mike, hi Mike, how you doing? If there are no further archives, I hope there will at least be an expanded set of press to play. Yeah, definitely. In one form or another, perhaps a set containing the remastered album and a bonus CD. This is where I think that the Paul McCartney archive collection has possibly found itself, because it was like an early adopter of the massive box set format. Remixes weren't really the vogue then. They weren't really in fashion back in 2010, 2011. It's been much more recent that that's happened. So Paul's now in a campaign, the archive collection, that's all about remasters. Apart from Tug of War, we know that was for different reasons that got a remix. But generally speaking, is in a campaign that focuses on remasters, and they're not really the modern way to do it now. So, would there be a relaunch of the archive series? I did a video about this about 3 months ago, about how the archive collection might need a reboot because he went early. I think he's found himself with a setup that's not really as groundbreaking as what maybe more recent campaigns are. So I don't know. I think it's a tricky situation that they're in. Okay, what else have we got in the chat? McCartney 4 in 2030. You wouldn't put it past him, would you? How old would he be then? 88. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I remember back in the sort of late 80s, You had comedians like Jasper Carrott absolutely ripping Rolling Stones to bits, making fun of them for the fact that, they're nearly 50 and they're on tour. And you look at what's going on now, and these guys just keep going and going, and it's incredible, really. Do any outtakes exist from the first two album sessions? Would a deluxe set be possible? Yeah, I mean, there's not as much, obviously, as there is for later albums. It's a real shame that, for example, things like the other take of Twist and Shout is gone. The other take of the first take of Please Please Me, that one that they always talked about being like the Roy Orbison style. The Please Please Me, that's gone. You're never going to hear that. So it's a real shame that there's some things you'll never get. But I've got a CD that I bought 20, 30 years ago that's got something like 24 takes of From Me to You on it. There's loads of stuff out there. That's a tough listen, I tell you. Is there a Coronation Street style pub near where you live? And do you know anyone like Vera Duckworth? I've got one about half a kilometre down the road from me. Do I know anyone like Vera Duckworth? Nobody knows anybody like Vera Duckworth. But then again, up north, we know 100 people like Vera Duckworth. Am I heading to Beatle Week in Liverpool, says Andrew? No. I think, is that this weekend or next weekend? It's usually bank holiday weekend, isn't it? I don't have any plans. Who knows? I might suddenly decide last minute to go, but I don't think it's what it was. You go back sort of 20 odd years. What an event that was. It was great. And then I don't hear as good things about it these days. So, but I don't want to put anybody off. I'm sure it'll be great. But no, I don't think I'm going this year. Yeah, Anthony, the Misery demo from the Cavern that Mark played at his Evolver show. If there's more of that stuff, that would be great. Definitely. John and Laura, they may do a Band on the Run half-speed remaster. You would imagine, wouldn't you? Because we've had... I don't think you can see them. I'm not pointing down far enough, but I've got all the others there. The McCartney Ram... what else have we had? Wildlife, Red Rose Speedway. I'd be very surprised if they didn't continue that. But the big thing that I would love to get is it was confirmed in the McCartney Legacy book this year that when Paul and Linda were mugged in Nigeria, and Paul says about having his tapes stolen with the demos on, the McCartney Legacy book suggests that was definitely a copy, not the original. So that the demo that Denny Sywell has said that him and Henry McCulloch with the rest of Wings recorded demos for pretty much most of the Band on the Run album up at Rude Studios in Scotland. So that surely that exists. If there could be some new version of Band on the Run that contains that would be fantastic. It was the Matthew Street Festival. Yeah, that's when I used to go. It was the Matthew Street Festival. Now it's bands from all over the world. I remember there was one day that I went, and I will never forget it. I was in the Cavern Club watching a Ruttles tribute band, which was amazing. We then came out and went across the road to the Cavern pub, and there was a Japanese Beatles tribute band, and they were called the Beatles. And there were these four they were no bigger than 5 foot, these Japanese guys, really thick Japanese accents. And they were brilliant. And because it was in the Cavern pub where it was, you could stand about sort of 3 foot away from them, watching these 4 little Japanese guys absolutely nail all these Beatles classics. It was quite amusing, but they were so good. I really enjoyed that. Marjorie, get yourself off to hospital. Don't come to me for any money. Moz, as I was saying, that was almost certainly a copy. It would appear the McCartney Legacy book was so well researched that I personally don't doubt what they're saying. So I hope it was true. Yeah, it was confirmed that they were copies. That's right. Were the last few McCartney archive releases poor sellers, hence no London Town and Back to the Egg? I don't know. They're never going to release figures on this. We don't know how many they need to sell to make the money that they want to make. What we do know, because this is easily publicly accessible information, is that they made far too many of that silly, huge Flaming Pie box. Not the deluxe edition one that's like the same size as all the others, but that huge one. There are still hundreds of those unsold, and we're talking many tens of thousands of pounds of money sat there unsold. So that can't help. I think it was a mistake to make that big Flaming Pie box. And the fact that there's so many still available on the website, I think backs that up. So I doubt that they'll do that again, because you can't make something that big, that expensive, and have hundreds and hundreds of them sat there unsold, even 3 years later. So, favorite Beatles tribute band. Come on, let's see what everybody else has got to say. I'm going with, it's the obvious answer, but I'm going with the Bootleg Beatles. And especially, I really love the current lineup of the Bootleg Beatles. I think they've got it right. Lovely bunch of guys. I was lucky enough to interview them backstage before a gig a few years ago. It's the same lineup still now, and just really interesting guys to listen to. Like, for example, Steve, who plays Paul McCartney. The fact that he was a right-handed bass player and he learned to play left-handed to be in the Bootleg Beatles. Now, anybody who's played guitar, you will know that if you try and swap it around to the other hand that you should be playing with, it's a nightmare. It's it's all credit to him for doing that. Oasis, says Lila, which is ironic given your name of Lila, been one of Oasis's #1 singles. Rain were great. Yeah, to be honest, I haven't seen loads of Beatles tribute bands. I've seen a few. I've seen quite a few in Liverpool. Bootleg Beatles is by far the biggest one that I've seen. Fab Four, yeah, I know they're very popular. Are they the ones that did the Christmas album 20 odd years ago? Dan says, I know things have to be financially viable, but you'd think he would just get the collections out and not worry too much about turning a profit. It is legacy after all. It's interesting because I guess Paul can think like that, but it's the record companies, isn't it? You know, it's Capitol who is signed to. Are they going to want to do that unless Paul acts as like an insurance? I don't know whether that kind of thing goes on. So it's Capitol really who are taking the financial risk. So I don't know. I don't know enough about how the record industry works to know about those kind of things. So I guess I don't know how many people have joined recently. Wow, we've got over 300 people watching. That is incredible. Thank you so much. Fantastic. I don't know how many of you were around earlier when we were talking about Red and Blue, and we're hoping that these are going to be announced soon, the new remixes, plus almost certainly additional content on top of, which would include the Now and Then, the new song. So I'm really hoping that we're going to hear something about that fairly soon. Blue Rhythm Boy, who's my favourite Beatle? You'd assume McCartney from your content on the channel. You know, I love all four of them. I'm a Beatle fanboy. That's hardly a shock to anybody. I know I can be a bit critical sometimes of some of the things that they do, but it's just that I just love the story. I love the music, and I just want to get more of it. And sometimes it's frustrating when it doesn't come. But yeah, essentially, who's number one in my list? It's Paul. Yeah, definitely. But no, I'm a fan of them all, and I know I was slow to take to Ringo's solo career, but I'm there now. You know, I did mammoth thing. Was it late last year or was it early this year when I went through Ringo's entire discography so that I could rank it all. Wow, that was a journey. That was a journey, especially when you're bringing in things like his Christmas album, which my God, that's generally poor. Jim says, all the remixes, are we happy with the inconsistencies on them all and really which is the best versions? Well, everybody's got their own opinion on that, haven't they? Some people hate them, some people love them. I love some of them. There's other things that I'm thinking, how did that get through quality control? Things like, for example, when Mr. Kite kicks in on Sergeant Pepper and it nearly takes your roof off compared to everything else. Why is it so loud? I don't understand that. But generally speaking, I thought Let It Be was superb. I think they've learned as they've gone on. I think they've been getting better. I'm not going to say couldn't get much worse, and I'm not going to say that. I think they've learned how to do them. I thought Abbey Road was much more subtle and a lovely enhancement. I thought Let It Be was fantastic, even though it was quite similar in many ways to the album, to the original. Revolver, I thought there was so much. I mean, I have no intention of ever listening to the original stereo mix of Revolver through headphones ever again. It's the remix is the only way to listen to it on headphones as far as I'm concerned. But again, that wasn't perfect. She Said is still a bit weird. Something a bit off about it. But I thought that I Want to Tell You, for example, sounds amazing on the Revolver remix. Will we get a mono box reissue, says Neil. I'd be surprised if it's got to be at some point for anything to get released, it's got to be their priority. And, it might happen, but while they're in this remix phase, it would seem really weird and out of place if they reissued the mono box. It would seem a bit weird to me because it would be it would fly in the face so much of everything they've been about over the last 5 or 6 years. So I can't see it happening while they're still doing the remix campaign, but I don't know. They might have pressed a load and sat in the factory waiting to be announced. Who knows? My favourite Beatles song. I absolutely refuse to answer. It's a great question, but I refuse to answer it. Because I can't. I just cannot answer it. It's one of those things where I think there's a real distinction between best and favourite. The best songs, I would have to say, are those incredible artistic achievements like Strawberry Fields Forever and A Day in the Life. It would be somewhere around that sort of Sgt. Pepper era. But then favourites, I mean, that opens up all sorts of possibilities. And, one day, there might be some days where, the only Beatles song I want to listen to that I've got any interest in listening to might be Martha, My Dear. Or it might be the one after 909, or it might be There's a Place. Those songs are really high up on my favourites. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the best. How could I argue that There's a Place is the best Beatles song? Because it isn't, clearly. But it might be one of my favourites. So, it's a minefield, is that question. I can't answer it and I won't answer it. But thank you for asking. James, this is a very good point I think you make here. The remix even sounds good when you use Spotify streaming in a Bluetooth speaker or headphones. And I think a lot of why it was created, as much as some of us want it to be the absolute perfect sound quality and sound amazing, yeah, of course we do. But not everybody's got that equipment, and they certainly want something that, a youngster who's just starting to hear about the Beatles. Who are these Beatles that everybody keeps going on about? What's so good about them? Get on Spotify, get it played. They're probably going to be listening to it through Alexa or something like that. It's got to sound good. It's got to punch, and it's got to cut through in the same way as what they're used to hearing. So I get it. I understand that I try to be a realist on some occasions. And then probably some people think what I come out with is complete fantasy sometimes, and maybe it is. But I try to be a realist. And I think they've got to try and keep the youngsters on board and keep them coming in, keep the new youngsters coming in. Otherwise, you die out. Bands die out, they get forgotten about. So I think it's really important that it does also sound good. And that must be a nightmare of a balance. If you're Giles Martin sat in Abbey Road and you've got this fantastic studio equipment to listen to it through, and you want it to sound the best that it can, but then also, how does it sound through that crappy little speaker? Because that's what most people are going to be listening to it on. So it's a tough balancing act, is that? Hi John, how are you doing? Did I hear you? Did I remember you saying that you were going to be joining late because you were working? If so, if I've remembered rightly, thank you for joining. What is my favourite Beatles album? Well, I think it's always going to be Sgt. Pepper. I think to me it's the greatest album ever made. But if you flip the question round slightly differently, and it's, you're going to a desert island for the rest of your life. Weirdly, for a reason that nobody's explained, you can take an album with you and you'll be able to play it, apparently, what you're taking with you. I'm going to take the White Album, just because it covers so many different styles. Whatever mood I'm in, there's probably something on there that's going to be what I want to hear. So my favourite, is Sgt. Pepper, but if I could only listen to one, I'd have to choose the White Album. Right, what else is going on in the chat? John, good point. After the lack of Revolver Blu-ray, is it an indication towards Red and Blue being spatial streaming audio only? I hope that they realised it was a mistake to not put a Blu-ray in Revolver, and I hope that they changed their mind. A bit like it was a mistake for them to do the download-only content in the Flowers in the Dirt archive, and they've never done it again. So, I don't know, but there was, for example, we know we're moving away from physical media. Disney Australia have announced that they're going to stop doing physical media. They're going to be streaming only. And no doubt that's going to be closely monitored. How does it go? Because, Disney very begrudgingly, I think, released that Blu-ray of Get Back, didn't they? I don't think they wanted to release that. There was no love put into that release at all. So I can't even remember what the question was I was answering now. Oh, it was about a Blu-ray and Revolver, wasn't it? I'd love us to get as many Blu-rays as we can as soon as we can, because there's going to come a time when that ain't going to happen anymore, unfortunately. News on It's a Wonderful Life musical. I haven't heard anything for a while on that, Maxwell. But that does remind me that the High in the Clouds Netflix animation that Paul had worked on for a long time with Lady Gaga, Netflix are not going ahead with that now. That was expected to come this year. It's not happening now on Netflix. Whether somebody else will buy the rights to it and broadcast it, no idea. But that is not coming to Netflix now, unfortunately. Will there be a release of Wings Over Europe live album? Now, again, I can only give my opinion here. If the archive collection is continuing, if I was working for Paul McCartney and I was running the archive collection, for example, I'd love that job. I really would. I would be very hesitant to put Wings Over Europe out. I know there's a lot of people want it, but you need to keep demand high for the future archive collections. And unfortunately, there was too much demand for Wings Over Europe compared to the number of copies available. If they're going to do a similar thing with, for example, London Town Back to the Egg, and let's say there's going to be a Wings Last Flight 1979 concert with it, you need demand to be as high as possible for that. Now, if Wings Over Europe's had a standalone release, that sort of says to people, you don't need to buy this because it'll get released separately anyway. But if they announce that package and Wings Over Europe hasn't been announced separately, people think the only way I'm going to get this is to buy that box, and it keeps demand up. So I think while the archive collection is still an ongoing thing, I think you might not like this answer. I think they would be foolish to do it from their point of view, not from a fan's point of view, but from a business point of view. I can't see it personally. Right, what else is going on? Beck says, if they were doing London Town and Back to the Egg as separate archive releases, which one do you think would sell the most out of those albums based on when they originally came out? Well, I think a lot might depend on what extras are in each. Which do I think would sell most? That's a tricky one. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe London Town, because it's got it's got a bigger hit on it. Is it? It's got With a Little Luck. Has Back to the Egg got as big a hit on that? Because the thing with London Town is as well, it would probably have as one of its extras Mull of Kintyre, which still to this day is the biggest selling non-charity single in UK chart history, amazingly. That's a selling point, isn't it? So I would expect probably London Town I'm going to go with as my answer there. The Glasgow show is a great listen. Yeah, we've had little bits of that. I must admit, I've never heard the whole show. It's probably out there on bootleg. I know there's the... is it Coming Up where they all start chanting for Kenny Dalglish? I presume that was that Glasgow? Oh, was that in Liverpool? Oh, you've got me thinking now. It could have been either, couldn't it? Back end of the 70s. Not quite sure. Oh, Jim, you're killing me with these questions. Favourite Christmas song, John or Paul's? Now, again, I'm gonna go to this best and favourite thing here. I think John's is probably the best song, but Paul's is my favourite, and I think it's a classic McCartney song where that song is as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And I know some people hate it, really hate that song, but I think there's a lot going on there, and it must have been. I think it's a genius track to have built in the studio like he did. So I'm going to go. I'm going to get splinters in my bum here and say the best is John's. My favourite is Paul's. Deal with it. Mike, you thought we'd get a London Town Back to the Egg box set like 71, 73, but you're not so confident now. Yeah, God, I really hope that we get that eventually. I've been on a video with John when we interviewed Lawrence Stuber from Wings. I was on that video. John was on that video. Me and John have talked about doing things. We never quite found an idea that we both liked, but you never know. It might happen at some point. The only poor side of Let It Be 2021 remix is no stereo separation of Paul and John's vocals, and I've got a feeling. Yeah, that could have been. That'd have been good, because obviously we know that they were there and there singing it, so let's hear them there and there. Yeah, I think they're trying to get away from vocals being sort of panned left and right. I don't know whether that's the reason, but I don't know. Do I set a budget on All My Purposes? That's a good question. Not really. I think just with everything, I decide, being the northerner that I am, I want to know, am I getting value for money? If I think I'm getting value for money, then I'll make the funds available. I might have to go without in other areas for a little while, but if I think I'm getting value for money, that's the most important thing for me. This is interesting, Harry, that the Flaming Pie CD deluxe set no longer available on the McCartney site. Interesting. I'll have to have a look at that. It's not too long ago that I last looked, and there was still about 270 available, something like that, which is a lot of money at 600 quid a throw. Mike says, wasn't Ringo meant to be putting another EP out? I think he's putting 2 EPs out. Was it 3? Was it 3? Has Red and Blue, etc., put an end to other Beatles-related releases? I mean, we don't know the answer to that question at all. But yeah, Ringo has got several. I seem to remember 3. Because I think there was sort of a general consensus of opinion of flipping heck, Ringo, if you're putting 3 EPs out, that's 1 album, isn't it? Why don't you just put out 1 album? But no, I don't think we'll get another album from Ringo. It just doesn't seem to be what he wants to do, does it? Hi, James. Has the Harrison estate gone to sleep as far as doing remixes and box sets? I just don't understand it. I don't understand at all what's going on there. Strange. All things must pass. Very lavish, a bit too lavish. Some might argue if you went for the big wooden crate. But ultimately, what a great box set. And I'm loving the remix more and more each time I listen to it. But yeah, why nothing else? Why no big Bangladesh re-release? Why no Living in the Material World? I don't know. Is it all coming? I really wish I knew. Is there any release, says Anthony, that you've nearly not gone for, thinking it was too much, but you just couldn't not get it? Hang on. I'm just trying to get the logic here. Oh, is there any releases that I nearly thought, no. Yeah, well, it's just sat down here. It's the McCartney singles box set. I had to pounce on that. I couldn't let that slip. So yeah, that was an interesting. I was away in Glasgow when that was announced. I was on a train when it went up for sale with really bad internet connection. I'm like, please, I've got to try and buy this while I'm on this train. But that was an interesting phone call home to say I'm just about to buy a £600 box set. I'll sort it, don't worry. But yeah, as always, my missus was brilliant about these things. She would have had a go at me had I not bought it. If I'd have said, I was going to buy it, but it was too expensive, she'd have said to me, well, it's your own hard luck then. You should have bought it. She's always brilliant about it. Do I ever listen to my 71 to 73 box set, says Mark? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I've listened to the Wildlife stuff a lot. I've listened to the Red Rose Speedway stuff a lot. The video content is fantastic in that box. I love watching like the James Paul McCartney special, the Bruce McMouse, various videos, and then the Wings Over Europe. I've listened to it many times. So, yeah, I get my money's worth out of that. This is the one, Richard. Have I got the Fireman Deluxe set? No. I really regret not having that. In fact, it was only about 3 or 4 days ago I was looking on Discogs and seeing what I might be able to get one for. And I was surprised, actually. It was a bit less than I thought. I think I could have got one for under 500 quid. That's too much. The thing was, when that came out, was it 2008? I wasn't in a position where I could pay £100 for a box set. I mean, it wasn't even a box set, was it? It was just like a cardboard bag, a paper bag with a few CDs in. But I really wish I had it. I really wish I'd bought it then, but I wasn't really in a position to do that, to be honest, back then. I would love that. If there was one box set that I haven't got that I wish I had, it's probably that Fireman one, to be honest. Yes, she really is, Marjorie. Hard luck. I'm afraid you're not in the picture there. I thought you were going to hospital anyway to have your baby. Have I listened to the re-release of Shankar Family and Friends, which made its way onto the Beatles website? I haven't yet, but I would very much like to. I've found myself more and more just lately listening to. I've got the Ravi Shankar album, the one that's supposedly the one that George heard back in the mid-60s that turned him onto Indian music. I like listening to that. I've got the stuff that's on Concert for George, all the Indian stuff at the start of that. I've been listening to that a lot more lately, so I'm definitely in the mood for that. So I would like to have a listen to that at some point. And if I like it, I may well buy a copy. crazy for Beatles. You're getting rid of your physical media. Yeah, well, a lot of people have that concept, don't they? Of spend your money on experiences rather than on objects, and I get that. Yeah. You saw Bruce McMouse in the cinema, Anthony. Fantastic. I mean, that must have been when was that? That must have been fairly recently. Mike was in there. You were relatively new to being a fan. I mean, obviously, I know you're still a young chap at the moment, so it can't have been too long ago. I would have gone to that if I'd have known that was on. Or maybe I did know. Maybe I couldn't go for some reason. I don't know. You've got an extra Fireman box set from... Wow, after writing a letter as your copy had fine lines on the CD, which doesn't affect play. I don't suppose you're selling it, are you, Richard? Drop me a message if you are. I might be interested. Hi, Tyrone. How are you doing? You went to see Ravi Shankar 100th birthday a few years ago. Danny was on the Fabulous Evening. Brilliant. I bet that was good. Where was that, Tyrone? Was that at the Royal Albert Hall or not? That'd be good. Anybody got any non-Beatles related stuff that they want to talk about or ask? Because I know it might be sacrilege, but there's more to life than the Beatles. I know it's hard to imagine, isn't it? How are we doing for time anyway? I've been on an hour. Okay, I didn't realise it'd been that long. Time flies, doesn't it? Thank you everybody for sticking around. I Want You, She's So Heavy, the 29 mix sounds incredible on good speakers. Yeah, I just really love that Abbey Road remix. I think it was... I think that the thing that I really loved about it was I thought they did a great job with the strings, especially the orchestration. It didn't overpower anything, but they really enhanced that without it being too much. Fantastic. Ooh, top 3 Oasis songs, says James. My top 3 Oasis songs, I'm going to go with an obvious one is Live Forever. Go Let It Out is one of my absolute favourites. And then probably, top 3. Cigarettes and Alcohol might be in there, might be top 3. The chat just went a bit crazy then, and there was something I was looking at that disappeared. Superman 1978 versus Star Wars. Superman 1978 is one of my favourite films of all time. It's a top 10 film for me. So I had both on VHS as a kid, and I would say I probably watched Superman a bit more often than I watched Star Wars, so I'm going with Superman there. Do I listen to much Pink Floyd? Yeah. I mean, there's some of it that I find really hard work. But if I had to pick my favourites, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Medal, obviously Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here. But I would say Medal is of the less obvious favourite albums. I'm probably going to say Medal would be my favourite one. Really love that. How's the trawl through my vinyl collection going, says Mike. My bottom shelf vinyl voyage. It's going good. So I've just finished a few nights ago, the David Bowie section. So I'm about halfway along one Kallax unit. I've got Burning Spear reggae album to do next, and then I'm into a big Kate Bush section, which I'm really looking forward to. So it's going well. It's going very well. Beck says, what interview was it with Paul about new songs in 2024? It was a Brazilian news website. I couldn't tell you the name of it, and like I say, unfortunately I think it's behind a paywall, so it was difficult to get in and translate it to English, but I did see somewhere that somebody had translated various passages of it into English, and Paul revealed there that he has got new songs that he wants to release next year. So, is that a new album? If not, what is it? Interesting. Oh, Ricky, who's next set at 300? And do you know what? The main reason that I haven't pre-ordered any of the Who's Next options is I just can't get my head around it. I don't understand what all the different options are. There's too many of them. It's too confusing to figure out what on earth I'm buying. And I don't understand it, is my honest answer there. So I want to buy one of these Who's Nexts, but I just don't understand what the options are. So I will, I'll get one at some point. Anthony, you're going to see Noel in December. Fantastic. The only realistic person for you on your list you'd like to see is Lee Mavers. I didn't realise until about a week or so ago that Lee Mavers had done some gigs this century. Was the last one maybe about 10 years ago or something. And he'd done a bit of a tour with... Who was it? He'd gone on tour... He'd done a few gigs with... Was it Carl Barrett? Or was it somebody else? I can't remember now. Lee Mavers would be... that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I would love to know what... Well, just love to know what he's up to, really. In light of the sad news of the passing of Robbie Robertson, how much of the band have you listened to, if at all? That was sad. I'm going to be honest here, Terry, that I'm not the biggest fan of the band. For example, the Dylan Basement Tapes is one of my least favourite eras of Dylan. I'm not really massively into their music. I appreciate them as individuals and as musicians, but it's not really music I've not really found much that excites me. So I'm going to be very honest there. There's no point me lying about that. But yeah, it's always sad news when somebody who's a hero to so many people goes. Now that's what I call Top of the Pops box set. I'd be up for looking at something like that. That could be good. Do you think we'll get any John Lennon Ultimate box sets anytime soon? I really hoped we would get Mind Games this year. It became apparent a year ago that we weren't going to get sometime in New York City. I know it was compiled, and I know that there was a lot of very, very good stuff planned to be in it, but for whatever reason they've decided to go down another route. But I would have hoped to have seen Mind Games by now. So especially with how quiet it's been on Beatles related releases during this year so far, it would have been an ideal opportunity earlier on this year if there'd have been a John set or a Paul or George set, whatever. But no, just not happened. So that's a shame. Gerard says, am I a fan of Tom Petty? I like a bit of Tom. There's a lot of his discography that I don't know. But I'm obviously a fan of things like Full Moon Fever. It was only fairly recently, a couple of years ago, that I got his first album, for example. I'd never listened to that until a couple of years ago. But obviously I love his Wilbury stuff. So there's an awful lot of Tom Petty that I don't know. But yes, I do enjoy what I know of Tom's. Right. An update on Flaming Pie Gate. Super Deluxe is still on the Macca USA store site, but not in the UK. Interesting. I'm gonna investigate that later and see what I can find out on that one. Interesting. Okay. The Plastic Ono remix has to be one of the most underrated of all Beatles solo releases. I thought it was a fantastic remix. I really love what they've done in the John Lennon Ultimate mixers with the sound quality of those mixers have been superb. And I know that they've got a plan that they're trying to work towards of highlighting, showcasing John's voice a little bit more than it was in some of the mixers, and I think it's brilliant. The Plastic Ono band remix and the Imagine ones I think are superb. Give Me Some Truth I think is a really interesting listen as well. I know that with that Give Me Some Truth. They went a little bit more bold on some of the remixes than they would if they were remixing the song for the album that it's on. So, for example, I think the Love remix, it's quite a bold opening, and they backed it off a little bit on the Plastic Ono Band remix. But they were trying to make a coherent listen. They were trying to make it so that you could listen to Give Me Some Truth, albums that were recorded in different continents, in different years, with different equipment that sounded very different. They tried to make it one sort of coherent listen, so that those differences weren't so obvious. So I think they went a little bit more bold on some of the remixes to try and make that happen. But it's a really interesting listen, I think. Andrew says, what are the best non-Beatle deluxe sets for you? I really like the Kinks one. I can just see over there. The Kinks Muswell Hillbillies box set that I got a few months ago, and it's got Everybody's in Showbiz album as well. Loads of extras. I really like that one. The Kate Bush remasters, I really enjoy those. What other ones have I got? I don't really have that many non-Beatles related. I've got a really good Small Faces Ogden's Nut Gone Flake box set. That's really good. That's got the original stereo mix, mono mix, and then it's got all sort of original US single mixes and all that kind of thing. That's really good. What would be my dream Beatles release using artificial intelligence? Well, it's got to be, and again, like however long ago it was on this chat, maybe half an hour or so ago, when I said, I like artificial intelligence if it's used for the right reasons, as in to enhance things, to separate elements of a recording and then bring them together to make a better sound. If it's for that reason, great. And it's got to be the Star Club tapes. I would love to hear a really good release of that, as I know many of you would. If it's artificial intelligence for the purposes of making somebody sound like they're singing something that they never sang in an era that they never sang it, not remotely interested in any of that. Do I think Shaved Fish should get another release? I can't see it happening. I think these ultimate mixers have kind of superseded that. So I'd be surprised if it happened, unless they did ultimate mixers of the songs that are on Shaved Fish. But even those they're quite some unique mixes and edits of songs on there, aren't there? So I'd be surprised if it happened. But Lionel says, if Macca came on tour but did no Beatles tunes, just his solo stuff, would some people complain? Of course they would absolutely complain. He'll never do it. But if he announced, I'm going to do a UK tour, no Beatles songs, solo career only, wow, I'll pay double for the ticket of what I was going to pay. I would love to see it. Tyrone says, what's my favourite era of music? I think just because, for most of us, I think our favourite eras are determined by our age. And for me, it has to be the 80s. I became a teenager in just before the mid-80s. And even now, things will come on the radio, songs from the 80s, and I'll be able to, I'll know exactly which month it came out. I know exactly which tape I had it on. I'll remember which Now album it's on. And, for me, for example, the winter of 1985 is a completely different beast to the spring of 1986. And the winter of 1986 is nothing like the spring of 1987. I've got all that lodged in my memory. So I think probably it's got to be the 80s for me. And that's going to be based on just how old I am, like it is for a lot of people. Oh, Becky, you're going to see Noel this weekend. Fantastic. Where are you going to see him? I hope to catch a reply to that. You're looking forward to the High Flying Birds stuff. Sorry, your comments just disappeared off my screen. Your friends hate Who Built the Moon. What is my favourite High Flying Birds album? I think it's got to be one of the first two. I think that I'm probably going with the first one. I think just because the anticipation of the fact that, like a lot of people, I'd been hoping for a Noel Gallagher album at that point for, let's have a think, between 15 to 20 years. I'd been wanting a Noel Gallagher solo album, so just the excitement of it and the fact that there was a few old Oasis tunes on there, or things that had been demoed with Oasis, like God, my mind's gone blank. I've forgotten what they are now. I've got it down here. Can I pull it out? Can I pull it out? Just bear with me 1 second, folks. Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah. So, Want to Live. Yeah, the one I'm thinking of is I Want to Live in a Dream in my record machine. So I've got an Oasis demo of that, an unreleased demo. So things like that, and If I Had a Gun, fantastic. Death of You and Me, aka What a Life was one of the big singles, wasn't it? So I think, yeah, I'm going with that. Yeah, I was going to say, when I was hesitating a minute ago, it's because I was wanting to say Stop the Clocks, and then I stopped myself. But yes, it is on there. So I think I'm going to go with the first album there as my favourite High Flying Birds. Rank Dylan's rock trilogy, says Mitchell. You would go Blonde on Blonde, Highway 61, then Bringing It All Back Home as your favourites. Yeah, I think we'd probably have to go Blonde on Blonde first. The thing with Blonde on Blonde that I have for me is that sort of half the album, and I'm not saying like side A or side B, I'm talking about sort of overall songs dotted through it that comes to about half of it. It's just the greatest album. It's unbelievably good. And then there's another half that I'm just not that fussed about, really. But when Blonde on Blonde is good, it's ridiculously good. So I'd have to have that. And I loved the Cutting Edge bootleg series as well, with just some of those demos are fantastic. And the way that they strip down Like a Rolling Stone, for example. Obviously that's not Blonde on Blonde. But the way that they stripped down some of the songs on that was amazing. I'm probably going to... I'm happy with your order, to be honest. The other two, I could... One day it might be Bringing It All Back Home, one day it might be Highway 61, but I think I'm happy with your order there. Oh yeah, if Paul announces a Deep Cuts show, get us there. Get us there. Get your last comments and questions through, folks, because I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. A few minutes, not just yet, but a few minutes, because we've been on an hour and 20, and that's enough for anybody, frankly. Certainly enough for my throat. Yeah, If I Had a Gun is a brilliant song. Freaky Teeth, yeah, that's fun as well. Thoughts on Elijah? I presume you're talking about Definitely Maybe there. Well, we've got the one that came out. Can I easily get my hands on the one that I've got? Yeah, hang on a second. Can I? Where is it? There it is. There it is. 1 second, folks. There's this one that's got the other two discs on it. So, I mean, I would wonder what else would there be other than what's on here. I don't know whether you can read that. My webcam that I use for live streaming isn't as good as my camera that I use for normal videos, but I'm not sure that they would be able to do much more than this. So, I don't know. Anthony, last episode of Inside Number 9, fitting song and also used in the most liked episode. What are the chances they used Time to Say Goodbye? Oh, sorry. Time to Say Goodbye. I'm having a mind blank. What's Time to Say Goodbye? Remind me. Yeah, I think Liam's winning. In the last 2 or 3 years, Liam has been fantastic. But I liked BDI as well. I saw them live a couple of times and really enjoyed that. I'm going to just skip up to something that's just caught my attention. We have talked about it, but I'm conscious that I've been on so long that there's probably people who've tuned in recently who've missed what we've said earlier. When's the next Beatles announcement? So it should have been last week. It was planned to be last week and it didn't happen. So I really hoped it was going to be this week, and now I have no idea, basically. I was really hoping that they'd just delayed the announcement a week, but kept the same original planned release date of September 29th, was it? But since though nothing's happened this week, I really, really don't know now. Oh, Jim, Free as a Bird or Real Love? For me, it's got to be Real Love. I like Free as a Bird, and I really loved the hype around it and the excitement around it. I loved the video and trying to pick out how many Beatles songs can you see referenced in the video. But ultimately, Real Love, I think as a song, kicks Free as a Bird's butt. Really love Real Love. James, what are my all-time favourite bands apart from stuff like the Beatles, Oasis, Stones and Floyd? Well, just to be clear, the Rolling Stones are not one of my favourite bands. I've nothing against the Stones. I've got a few Stones albums, and I've listened to them a fair amount over the years, but I would not class them as one of my favourite bands. I'm not even sure I'd class Pink Floyd as one of my favourite bands, to be honest. So who else does that leave? That leaves, it would be of the ones that are not mentioned there, Blur, U2, the House Martins will always be one of my favourite bands. And who else? I think anything else is going to come. Oh, Beach Boys, of course. Anything else is going to be a level down from those. Hey Jeff, hello South Carolina, how you doing? Is it warm there today? Mitchell, sorry, I've seen this question come up and never got around to answering it before. Favourite non-album Paul McCartney single would have to be Another Day, backed with Oh Woman Oh Why. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's got to be the answer for me. The Beat Goes On by BDI is as good as anything Noel has done. I'll tell you, that first BDI album had some cracking songs on it. It really did. And I think even the second album as well. The song that opened it, what was it called? In the blink of an eye, was it? Brilliant gig opener. I absolutely agree, Lila. U2 have recently released some awful stuff. We might have different opinions on which of it is awful. So, of the recent Songs of series that they did, so they did Songs of Innocence, and I liked Songs of Innocence. I thought that was good. Songs of Experience, I thought was poop. Really didn't like that at all. So that for me would come under the awful stuff category. The last one, Songs of Surrender, I didn't see the point of it at all, but now I've listened to it quite a bit, I quite enjoy it. But Songs of Experience for me is the one where I really, really don't get it. Thank you, Comic Collector. You don't comment a lot, but thank you for what you do. Thank you for watching. Thank all of you for watching. Because nobody has to watch this. And I realise that. Nobody has to watch this at all. So I really appreciate that you do, all of you. You've seen Noel at Caldicot Castle. That'll be a fun venue. Nice. How do I think that Now and Then will rank against Free as a Bird and Real Love? I really don't, because I mean, I know the John Lennon demo, but what they've turned it into, we have no idea. So I'm just excited to hear it, and I'm excited to be able to rank it when the time comes. But Really don't know. What was the one that everyone had on their iPods? I think that was No Line on the Horizon. I think that was the album that they put onto people's iPods. Mine included. I then realised that I loved several of the songs that were on it, and I bought it. So I'm one of the ones that bought No Line on the Horizon despite being given it for free. There's a song called Unknown Caller on that album that's just superb. Really love that. I quite like that album, but I listened to some of it about a year ago, and I had a thought came into my head, and it's the first time I've ever had this thought, and I thought, is this me getting old, or am I sort of being realistic here? And I just thought, Bono, why are you shouting? Why are you just tone it down a little bit? And I thought, is that me getting old? I don't know, but that was some songs off No Line on the Horizon. Anyway, it was songs of... Was it Songs of Innocence that was put onto people's iPods? Was it? If that's what you're... I'm going to Google this. Which U2 album was put onto people's iPods for free? When did Apple put... Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, okay. I thought it was No Line on the Horizon. It was Songs of Innocence. Oh, well, I did buy that as well. So I did buy the one that they gave us for free. No Line on the Horizon, I think, was that about 2009. That's when I went. That's the last time I went to see them. Really annoying. Really annoying. So I had tickets to go and see U2 at Sheffield Don Valley Stadium. Really excited for it. And then last minute, Oasis announced they were playing Bridlington, Spa Royal Hall, the town that I grew up in, on the stage that I've played 7 times. I could have got a ticket for it, and I couldn't go because I already had a ticket for U2. And it turned out to be, apart from a couple of festivals, it turned out to be the last Oasis gig. The last actual proper non-festival Oasis gig. And I missed it because I was seeing U2 that night. Yes, you're all right. It was Songs of Innocence. That was me getting mixed up. No Line was when they did the 360 tour. That's right. That was a good gig. I really enjoyed that. Best McCartney live show. It's probably going to be one of the 2 times that I've seen him in Liverpool. Once at King's Dock. Weirdly, 5 years to the day apart. 1st of June 2003, King's Dock, Liverpool. And then 1st of June 2008 at Anfield Stadium. So it'd be one of those. Right. Thank you, Anthony. Time to Say Goodbye is a song by Andrea Bocelli. 12 Days of Christine. What a fantastic episode that is. That is, if you've never seen the 12 Days of Christine episode of Inside Number 9, what an absolutely majestic piece of television that is. I quite like watching reaction videos on YouTube. I know some people hate them, but there's a guy called Josh, an American guy who does reaction videos, and he just downloaded, I think it was last night, his reaction to the episode of Inside Number 9 called The Bill. You'll know that one, Anthony. So I watched him watching that for the first time this morning and really enjoyed that again. That's a great episode as well. I'm sure, Lila, that nobody ever agrees on things like this, but Achtung Baby, is it their best album? Probably. I would agree with you on that one. I love Achtung Baby. It was right in that period when I'd overcome my hatred of U2, my absolute hatred of U2, and I was just completely falling in love with them as a band. And that was kind of just before Achtung Baby. So that was their first studio album that they released after I'd become a big fan. I bought the album on the day it came out, and then pretty much immediately caught chickenpox and spent the next 3 weeks in my bedroom just listening to Achtung Baby, amongst a few other things, but just absolutely hammered that album for so long. Loved it. Right. Yeah, Troy, you would have sacked off U2 or Oasis. If I'd have known it was going to be the last Oasis gig, I probably would have done the same thing, to be honest. Next year is the 50th anniversary of Walls and Bridges. You hope that comes out, but you don't hold much chance of that if they haven't issued Mind Games. Yeah, I'd be really disappointed if Mind Games gets missed out. But Walls and Bridges is one of my favourite John Lennon albums. It's just outside that top 2 of Imagine and Plastic Ono Band. So we'll see. Gary, I haven't heard it yet. I've heard from a couple of people who have heard it, and it wasn't a great opinion that they had of it. I read somebody saying, "I've heard it. I never need to hear it again." But you know, I'll be playing it tomorrow and seeing what I think of it. If I like it, I'll get it on some sort of a playlist. If I don't like it, I'll just pretend it doesn't exist. Oh God, absolutely, Justin. Sorry, yeah, Radiohead. How did I not mention them? My brain goes to mush when I do things like this. I don't have any clarity of thought whatsoever when I do these things. Radiohead is absolutely in my top bands, of course it is. There's only 2 albums that I've ever considered to be perfect. In my opinion, everybody's opinion is going to be different, obviously. And by what I mean by perfect is, I don't mean that every song is like the best song there's ever been. But what I mean is, I don't think there's any way that you could change the album and make it better. And one of those albums for me is Abbey Road, and the other one is The Bends. I don't think there's anything you can do to The Bends to make it better. It is perfect. But then OK Computer is probably a better album. I don't think it's perfect, but it's probably a better album. Yeah, anyway. Right, guys, I'm going to finish this now because I've been on an hour and a half. My throat's killing me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I know, you, like I said a few minutes ago, you don't have to, so I'm really pleased and happy that you take time out to do that. As soon as there is any news on the Beatles Red, Blue, Now and Then song that I can bring you, I will be all over it. You know I will be. With announcements. I'll do another live stream as soon as it's been announced. Unless there's some absolute insane reason why I can't do a live stream that day, I will do a live stream on the day of the announcement. I am imminently about to become a granddad again. So if I bet that happens on the same day as a Red and Blue announcement. If that's the case, then I'm sorry, but my new granddaughter will take priority. But other than that, I will be doing live streams as and when there's an announcement, as well as any other videos. And I'll be covering it all the way. You know I will. So I'll bring you news as soon as I can. And thanks everyone for watching, but I'm going to log off now. So I'll see you all later. Rest in peace, Michael Parkinson. Thank you for all the memories. Bye-bye.